Hi, my name is Kim Humphrey, and I'm the CEO of Parents of Addicted Loved Ones. And we're so happy to have with us today Josh Acevedo. We really appreciate you being here. Josh is a licensed substance abuse counselor. He also owns a substance abuse program. You primarily work with teens and college-age youth, and you've been in this field for well over 25 years, and we're really happy to have you here again today. Thank you. Well, you know, one of the questions that comes up on a regular basis, especially when dealing with a family that finds out that their son or daughter has gone down this path of drugs or alcohol, and it's it's devastating. But one of the main questions that comes into your mind is, why? Why me? Why my kid? I see all these others out there, they don't seem to have this issue going on, but it happened to my kid. And I'm guessing you've heard that question before, and maybe you have some thoughts on that.
I hear that question every day. And we also do a lot of work in the school districts here in Arizona, and so we hear that a lot from teachers, we hear it from parents, administrators all the time. And I have several different things I know about it. The first thing that I always like to cover, though, is kids use for the same fundamental reasons that they always have. There are some generational differences that we can cover that are really specific to today, but kids still ultimately answer the main reason that they use drugs. The first initial use is usually simple as peer pressure. There's somebody else who has it and has access and creates the opportunity, and they go, and it's perceived as harmless enough the first time it's presented, hey, this will be fun, that it's worth a try. The reason kids typically continue to use, and this has been the same as long as I've been doing this, and I know some folks have been in recovery since back in the 60s and the 70s, and it was the same then, is because it's fun. And that's one of the things that we don't talk a lot about in society, is that it feels really good. We can overemphasize the addictive nature of chemicals. People and they hear on the news, they go, fentanyl, and it's scary, and it's very addictive, and you can take it once and you're hooked, and you hear these things on the news. What is not talked a lot about, though, is the first few times that people use, and if you go back, and most people who are in recovery, if they go back and recount their first uses, they will go, they were so much fun. They were transcendent, if you will. I did it that first few times, it made me feel so good. It created release from worry, or it created a sense of confidence. That's what it did for me. That was one of the things it did for me. It made me immediately feel like I could be a part of things, right? And go, wow, I fit right in. I feel more confident. And it's during a time for most people when they're going through a lot of transition. Most people start using, most of our folks that have addictions as adults started using when they were teenagers, and we know that in the U.S. and we track it. You can look that up in SAMHSA and some of that. I mean, you are much more likely to end up with a substance use disorder if you start as a teenager. The earlier the onset, the more likely to have problems long term. And part of that is that's a time when you're really subject to that anyway. It's insecure. Any parent, anybody can go through and remember what it feels like to be 12, 13, 14 and not totally know where you fit in, and you're first maybe really noticing what your peers are doing more than what's going on at home, and it's a little bit less, mom and dad are a little bit less cool than they used to be, and the kids at school are a little bit more cool, and you're getting interested in going on a date, you want to be invited to things you want to be a part of, and there's a subculture around drugs and alcohol in America, and there has been for a long time, that says, well, you want to come to this party and drink? Alcohol is a huge part of our culture. It has been for a long time. We've now added currently that cannabis, marijuana, pot, whatever you want to call it, is a huge part of that also, and seen as socially acceptable in a lot of states. It's been medicalized and legalized, so kids now have, those are the two big entry drugs, alcohol and THC. And we track that here in Arizona through the Arizona Youth Survey, and we know our average age of onset is about 12 years old, which tells you that people are starting younger than 12. And there's this really low perception of harm, particularly around THC. Oh, it's not going to hurt me. I see it on TV. There's lots of jokes about it. People who are stoned are made to look funny. There's a lot of jokes about alcohol. You see it on social media. So there's this kind of like, it's not really going to hurt me. I go into schools really regularly, and one of the things I'll ask when I'm speaking to a classroom is I'll go, what do you guys know about pot? And inevitably some kid raises their hand and says, cures cancer. You know, or those are the kind of answers that you'll get. These are the kind of things that they've read on the internet and that they believe. So when a parent kind of says, why? I go, I think a lot of kids it's such a part of the culture, just about every kid is going to be subjected to it to some degree. Some kids are going to say yes, some are going to say no to trying it that first time, and those with the potential for an addictive personality at all, oftentimes are going to grab it and run with it. And there are some different things that separate, you know, there may be genes involved in that, there may be things that are going on in the home right then, there may be a particular stress that it relieves. I've heard people say, I didn't have any real problems, it came down to the girl that I liked smoked pot, so I started doing it with her, and then I was hooked on it. And there's nothing wrong with that kid. That's not a kid that had a ton of problems or was raised wrong or anything else. It's a series of decisions with some really powerful chemicals that they don't realize what the potential downside is, and that these things can really grab a hold of you.
And so that at first, you know, onset or that first use, you know, the idea is the feeling that you get, maybe it gives you that confidence, or, you know, there's some positive benefit that they feel like they realize from it. But you kept saying those initial first few times. Yes. Because what happens after that?
So for most people, they'll say that it stays fun for quite a period of time. But what starts to, there's a couple of things that are really going on there. It's going to be harder to have fun in other ways because it's an unnatural amount of a high. And this is probably for a different discussion, but you get released dopamine, which makes you feel really good. But there's an unnatural amount of it, more than you're going to get from natural things that you do that make you feel good. And what's going to happen over a period of time is you're going to numb a little bit to that dopamine. So the high, you're going to build a tolerance. It's going to take more of the drug for you to feel good and to get high. But also, you're going to get less pleasure from time with family, friends, the sport that you like. And that's so often why you hear people say, well, I was a big-time musician, basketball player, whatever I was into, but I lost interest in it. Because it no longer could compare to, as you're getting used to being high all the time, it doesn't feel as good as the drug. It's not lifting you up as high as the drug is, so you lose interest in those things. So what's going to happen is, at short term, drugs, alcohol, meet a lot of needs in a false way. They go, wow, it helped with confidence. I need to have confidence. Help me to feel good. I need to feel good. Maybe it helped me with social. Maybe it helped me relieve stress. You know, well, it's doing the trick. This is really cool. Right? And that's just about anybody that's in recovery or has had a problem will tell you that. Well, this really started off really well. But then it takes more to do it, and it starts to take a lot of lifestyle changes to protect it. Maybe you start to lie about it, which is not going to make you feel good about yourself. So you're going to start, that's going to start to create, I don't feel good about myself. You're going to hide. Maybe you feel ashamed about it. Maybe your coach catches you and benches you. So there's some consequences starting to happen. And over time, those consequences are going to build up. And the consequences are going to end up outweighing the fun. And you'll hear a lot of people that find their way into recovery go, the fun was starting to wear off because the consequences were backing up so badly that it was a lot of misery. And now I'm just using to feel normal. You hear that statement a ton from people in recovery is I used for a while and I felt really good, really good. And now when I drink or when I use something, I just feel normal. How did we get there? And what has happened is you've developed not only a tolerance to the drug, but your ability to experience joy. And a lot of times the lifestyle changes that come with substance use are starting to really catch up with you. And it's rare that I've talked to somebody who's had a substance use disorder that feels really good about their behavior during that. Because most of the time it turns into more and more shameful behavior and things that they know go against their moral compass. And our way in on that for just a second too is we've talked about that in other talks like this is as parents feeling guilty and why did my kid get on drugs? Almost every kid I've ever worked with, which has been a lot over the years, has a good moral compass. They go against it when they're on drugs and alcohol. It's not that it's not there. That's part of why they start to end up getting so down, and they're really down in their lives. They get to feel hopeless, is they know that they're doing the wrong thing, but they're doing it anyway. They didn't know these powerful chemicals are going to walk me down this road. You know, if we go talk to people in our prisons or get out of prison, they go, is that where you wanted to end up? And they're like, yeah, that's what I was shooting for. That's never the case.
Yeah, and clearly, as you've mentioned, that which is very interesting, that it starts off one way, it ends up being how I feel normal because I've lost my ability to find joy in the normal things in life. And then I guess just touching on the whole issue of if they get into some of these other drugs that are very highly dependency causing, which obviously addiction issues start to happen, and now you've got drugs that have literally hijacked your brain, and this is why you start to see these behaviors, and it gets out of control, and it makes it so beyond just saying, oh, we just need to stop.
Yes. Now I want to stop. Even when I'm not feeling good about myself, I want to stop, and I find I can't. Or if I can for a short period of time, I can't stay that way, because it does take now a total lifestyle change, a rearrangement of how you're dealing with your life. And there's going to be a period of time for a lot of people, sometime in early recovery, there's going to be a lot of discomfort. And that comes a lot of times with substance use disorders as avoidance of discomfort. Just go, I don't want to feel uncomfortable, whether it's physically from the withdrawal, whether it's emotionally because I don't have the drug anymore. So you'll find a lot of people have that in common when they tell their stories. I was avoiding any discomfort at all costs. They avoid accountability and discomfort very often. And I did the same when I was using it. I didn't want to be accountable for my actions because I don't have to face up to some of these choices. And I didn't want to have to pass through all of the discomfort sitting in my own skin that comes at first. But on the other side of that, you do start to feel better. You can gain joy again from, sitting down and eating your favorite meal and spending time with your family. But that doesn't come right away.
So with all of these topics that we talk about, really, having a parent understand and being educated about why is helpful. It's helpful for me, when I was dealing with this, to understand, why is this happening in my family? Why did this happen to my kids? Well, you know what? That's a tough question, and why questions are usually bad questions. But at the same time, I think what you've said has been very helpful, and I think this will be, one more thing that will give parents hope that, okay, now I understand, now what do we do?
Now, exactly, and it certainly means it's not because you didn't search the room enough, or it comes back to it's not about something the parent did or didn't do.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it, Josh.
Absolutely.